Hey all. So, last war of this very weird season here. First off, we have a fight that, as you may be used to if you're not new to the channel, Reed probably has no business taking, but I'm taking with Reed. It made pathing easier, and I was quite confident in this. I have taken America Chavez before with Reed, where she has gone into her dark dimension, and I've had to deal with the reverb. He does okay. It's really not ideal. But basically, if you have the House of X pre fight, I'm not worried about her getting to her special 2. If it comes to that, some tricky decks is there at the wall. I would prefer she throw her special ones again and again in a row so that I can convert the active debuffs into a passive. But that was just getting a little bit too dangerous, so I decided to knock her down with a heavy to keep the specials flowing. It's okay. We're going to have trouble getting the passive here. We go ahead and block that special too. And we're just going to try and not knock her down right now because we don't want the debuff immunity. And it's not because we'll lose control of the fight. It's actually very easy for us to continually stun her because we have the guidance pre-fight. That's the whole point of that. We don't want the debuff immunity because we want these careful study debuffs to apply. She throws one more special one without us knocking her down. Excellent. Okay. So now it's a passive. Now I can safely knock her down, maintain credit for that passive, and we're still going to get a Fury from this special 3 because it counts those passives as 3 debuffs for Reed's abilities. We were going for that earlier, got backed up, but we got it by the end of the fight. That also gives us credit for a debuff at the end so that we don't have to, or so that we have one more persistent charge. But just honestly, a very safe fight for Reed unless she goes crazy with the heavies. But that's why we have House of X on the team, because it makes it that much simpler. I took this Toad versus Nick Fury fight once already this season, and as I said then, I do think that Penny Parker is a better hard counter to Nick's Second Life. But also, as I said, if you can try to time things out properly with where the protection is and how many poisons are on Nick, when you get him to 0 the first time, then Toad still can be very good. So that is my goal here. I'm trying to line up things with the protection and with my poisons so that I have. The goal I set for myself was 5 or 6 active poisons as we get to 0. It's not necessarily going to be easy, and it's not guaranteed because even against skill champions, he's not guaranteed. I know I said guaranteed twice, but it's not a 100% chance to turn those active poisons into passives. As we saw right there, the protection purified, I think, 5 of them, and we only got 1 passive. That was a pretty bad roll. But we have to know that that's possible. But we also don't want to overshoot and go to 9 before we get him to 0, because then we lose all of our progress. So that was almost perfect right there. We got him to 0 while he had 6 active poisons on him, 5 of them converted, which is an above average roll, but not an exceptional one. And then they just took care of him. So that's exactly how I wanted that fight to go. That is why we brought Toad, and that it was a significant improvement over the last time. So, unfortunately, this next one is not going to be a significant improvement over anything. I did practice for this. I made sure that I knew the heavy counter. And I don't know why I used that light attack there, because I didn't need to adjust the spacing. I just needed to throw a heavy. And right there, I was clearly a little gun shy and didn't feel great about it. So anyway, now I've been backed up. I've taken a hit. I didn't need to, but we're mostly into our rhythm here, which is just throw a heavy occasionally to try and make sure that we do not fully lose out on strike counter, and just play this down. Now, we are obviously taking more blocked hits than I would like to, but what I realized pretty quickly here is, you know what? We are taking enough blocked hits that is giving us the power that we would get from the heavy. I can parry heavy periodically for a bit more, but basically I was like, look, she's losing so much health just because this is Toad versus a skill champion. I don't need to worry about any finesse. I just need to try and make sure she doesn't stack like, I don't know, 8 or 9 of those block pen things, and then I'll just rely on my regen to keep me topped up and rely on my damage against a skill champion to make this safe. And that's exactly what that was. So that can be way more elegant. Toad can 100% come out of that with a full yellow bar if you finesse it better than I did. But you also don't need to because Toad is just really good against skill champions if there's not something explicitly stopping him. And that's what you saw on display there. So Reed is very good against Mysterio here, the same way that he is on Power Snack, because Mysterio's specials are problems. Suppression means there are fewer specials. Now, as we eventually get to the point where we still need to bait things out, we are going to have a little bit of trouble with the disorient sticking on us and that making our parry heavies not guaranteed. I know that ahead of time. I'm trying to play strike counter well enough that when that happens, it does not cause problems. I would love to be able to push to a special 2 here and get him locked down even further, so I had to worry less about baiting. In a more competitive season, I probably would have power started here so that my first special was a special 2, and then I would just maintain things with the special 1, and we would be good to go for the rest of the fight. That is the ideal way to take this with Reed. We are having to do a little bit more finesse than that. Really annoyed that I mistimed that parry and it ended up being an evade because I lost all my debuffs. Unnecessarily so. I had enough time. I just messed up. Thankfully, we saved it a bit with those evades at the wall, and the thing is that we've done enough damage to Mysterio now that we don't really have to worry about anything else going sideways, and there he goes. Yeah. So, good counter. Just play around strike counter. As long as you have an option that allows you to do so, for a lot of these placements, you just don't have to worry about it. And then Reed against Mangog, yet again. This is, I think, my cleanest run all season. And part of that is 100% because of AI behavior. Because he is a little bit more generous with when he's throwing things here. But part of it is also just, I really do feel like I manage which specials I throw when very well here, and that's nice. So he throws the special 1, we do get our special 2 here, even without the power start, so now things are more under control, especially the combat power side of things. We are not worried quite as much about hitting into him. He's very kind and throws that special 1. He throws this one as well, and so now we have extra combat power rate, and so it's really important to push up to this special 1 and get that stagger on him, so that when he throws his next special, we stagger the unblockable. So there, that part is good, but unfortunately I triggered Dex and pushed him right to another special 1, so that is one small mistake. Ideally, I wouldn't have Dexed anywhere in there. Mystic Dispersion would not have given him as much, and we could have just parry-heavied before he got to a bar again, and we wouldn't have had to worry about applying the stagger. We could have just worked our way back up to the special 2. That said, it's totally fine throwing those special 1s while we have the increased combat power rate from the Careful Study passive. This is the benefit of having a SIG 200 Reed. And so we don't really pay much for doing that twice. We get back up to the special 3, and I almost finished that fight with more health than I came in with. So, unfortunately, we lost the stagger a little bit early. I came out dead even. But yeah, that's about as good as that can possibly go. So we did win this war, but as I've talked about a couple times throughout this season, we were not using loyalty boosts, we were not using potions, and that had the predictable result. We probably should have tried for one more war, because we definitely could have gotten over the line into Platinum 1, and that 6-star Nexus would have been nice. But it is what it is. I don't have any actual rewards openings for this season, because a 5-star Nexus isn't exciting, and those 30,000 shards right there are just going to sit in my inventory until the next feature crystal comes around. But all in all, this was an interesting season. I think a lot of us learned a lot. It was interesting. I personally had a lot of fun playing around with these different attackers, and I'm excited to push next season. Now that the rewards have been announced and are very juicy, it'll be fun to try and get back to Masters. So hopefully that works out for us. Until then, thanks so much for watching, and take care.